You won't believe what my ex-mother-in-law left me after my husband cheated. Hi everyone, I'm in a bit of a situation and would love to hear your thoughts. My name is Lily, and I'm 27 years old. I have a 7-year-old daughter named Emily. I was married to my ex-husband, Alex, for almost 8 years. When I was 2 months pregnant with our second child, I discovered Alex was cheating on me with his coworker, Rachel, who is 28. I stumbled upon their text messages on his phone by accident. When I confronted Alex about it in tears, he admitted that Rachel was also pregnant with his child. Hearing his words, I was so shocked that I nearly fainted. My husband and I had numerous arguments, and despite my ex-mother-in-law, Martha, coming to take care of me during this period, I was so stressed that I eventually miscarried. When Alex found out we had lost the child, he didn't hesitate. Instead of grieving with me or offering comfort, he left the house to be with Rachel, blaming me for the miscarriage. I was devastated and cried for days. Thankfully, Martha stayed with me and took care of Emily so I could grieve in peace. Alex and I went through a nasty divorce where he refused to pay child support, but the court eventually forced him to do so. Throughout the divorce, Alex made it very clear that he didn't want to be involved in either my or Emily's life anymore. He gave up full custody to me, which broke my heart for my daughter, but there was nothing I could do. The only thing he ever did was pay child support every month. He never made any attempts to visit or get to know Emily. Eventually, I found out that Rachel gave birth to a son, and they have been together ever since. Throughout all this, my parents and Martha were there for me every day. Martha and my parents had known each other and had been best friends for a long time. That's how Alex and I first met. When Martha found out about Alex's affair, she was extremely upset with him and showed her support for me. She and Alex fought a lot about his affair, and she vowed never to speak to him again. When she found out he was leaving me, she also warned him that she wanted nothing to do with Rachel and their child. It's shocking, but Martha kept that promise until the day she died. She refused to speak to Alex, even when he begged her to visit him and his son. Rachel was extremely jealous of me and Emily because she was never considered family by Martha. When Martha first came to support me, she faced a lot of backlash from her family. Alex had lost his father a few years ago, so his relatives tried to convince Martha to forgive him. They told her that Alex was her son, so she should let bygones be bygones and visit his child. Martha firmly refused. When Rachel gave birth to Alex's child, his relatives rallied around him, despite knowing he had cheated on me. They didn't bother to care or check on me and Emily. Things got so bad between Martha and her family that they started to exclude her from their celebrations and family events just so they could invite Alex instead. Martha always refused to attend events if Alex was going to be there with Rachel. I always felt bad for Martha because of this, but she assured me that I was like her child too, and she didn't mind if her relatives dropped her. I am extremely grateful to have had a woman like her as my mother-in-law. It's rare to be loved and supported this much. Unfortunately, Martha became unwell, losing her ability to walk and manage on her own. I invited her to move in with me permanently, committing to care for her and ensuring she had support around the clock. We enlisted the help of a live-in nanny who tended to her needs in the mornings, while I took care of her in the evenings. I dedicated countless hours to her care, and honestly, I didn't mind. Emily was thrilled to have her grandma living with us. During her stay with us, Martha revealed something significant. When she first learned about Alex leaving me, she had decided to make changes to her will. Initially, she had intended for Alex, being her only child, to inherit everything. However, upon discovering his affair, she amended the will. Now, the house and her life insurance were designated for Emily. She also added me to receive a large portion of her money and family heirlooms. It was an honor and a sign of trust. Her wish was for me to safeguard these possessions, passing them down to Emily when the time was right. The idea that a piece of her, and perhaps generations before her, would continue in our family brought a profound sense of connection. As time went on, Martha's health continued to decline, but she remained as spirited and loving as ever. Alex never bothered to call or check on her. Despite our differences, I would have had no issues if he had come to visit her. but he never did. One day, Martha had severe breathing difficulties, and I had to rush her to the hospital. I was terrified something might happen to her. While my dad took care of Emily, my mom and I spent the entire night at the hospital, praying she would get better. Luckily, she did, and we were able to take her home after a few days. This health scare made me realize how fragile Martha's condition had become. I didn't want her to pass away without making amends with Alex, even if it was just for her peace of mind. Keeping our differences aside, I called Alex and begged him to visit Martha. I told him how our doctor had warned us about her condition and that I was afraid she wouldn't survive for long. Instead of showing concern for her, Alex started to argue about how his mother had never bothered to form a relationship with Rachel. I pleaded with him to keep his ego aside for the sake of his mother. He argued that he had a busy schedule and couldn't spare much time. Martha's health continued to decline rapidly. It was painful to see her in such a weakened state, but I remained committed to providing her with the best care possible. Emily, too, was a constant source of joy and comfort for Martha, often sitting by her bedside, reading stories, or simply holding her hand. As the days went by, Alex's and Rachel's visit faded into the background. They never returned to check on Martha, and it became clear that their brief appearance had been nothing more than a gesture. Martha, however, remained strong in spirit, though her body was failing her. One evening, as I was sitting with Martha, she expressed her gratitude for everything I had done for her. She reiterated how she had decided to change her will to ensure Emily's future and to honor the love and care I had shown her. She made it clear that she had no regrets about her decision, despite the potential backlash from her family. "I want you to know," Martha said, her voice weak but steady, "that you and Emily are the family I choose. Alex made his choices, and he must live with the consequences. You have been more of a daughter to me than I could have ever hoped for." Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened to her heartfelt words. I assured her that I would honor her wishes and take care of Emily and the inheritance with the utmost respect and responsibility. Not long after, Martha's condition took a turn for the worse. One night, she slipped into a coma, and the doctors informed us that there was nothing more they could do. My parents and I kept vigil by her side, holding her hand and speaking to her, even though she couldn't respond. We wanted her to feel our presence and love in her final moments. A few days later, Martha passed away peacefully in her sleep. The loss hit me hard. I felt a deep sense of grief, not just for myself but for Emily, who had lost a beloved grandmother. I also felt a profound sense of responsibility to honor Martha's legacy. I took charge of organizing Martha's funeral. Despite the lack of support from her relatives, I was determined to give her a dignified farewell. My parents and I took care of all the arrangements, from selecting a beautiful casket to arranging a serene venue for the service. Rachel didn't even bother attending the funeral with Alex. Although some of Martha's relatives showed up, their lack of genuine concern was evident. They were more interested in the inheritance than in paying their respects. After the funeral, Martha's lawyer contacted me about her will. Emotions overwhelmed me as I read through the document, which confirmed that Martha had indeed left everything to me and Emily. The house, her life insurance, a large portion of her money, and family heirlooms were now ours. The conflicting waves of joy and sadness engulfed me as I grieved the loss of a cherished person, but also felt grateful that I could provide Emily with a secure future. As I navigated through this mix of emotions, there was a sudden knock on my door. Opening it, I found Alex, Rachel, Darren, and a few other relatives standing there with grim expressions on their faces. Alex wasted no time in demanding an explanation for the will. His accusing tone cut through the room, filled with resentment. "Why did you get everything? My mother's house, her money, her heirlooms. It should all belong to me," he exclaimed, his anger palpable. I tried to remain composed, explaining that Martha had carefully considered her decision and made it with a clear mind. Alex started to accuse me of manipulating his mother and influencing her decision when she was bedridden. I reiterated that he could check the timestamp and date of her updated will, which was done long before her health started to deteriorate. Rachel chimed in, her voice tinged with resentment, questioning why Emily and I deserved to have everything when she and her son were family too. In response, I scoffed at her and revealed, in front of everyone, what I had overheard Rachel saying on the phone. Her eyes widened as she realized that I remembered word for word what she had said about Alex's mother. Alex looked at her in surprise as the reality of Rachel's intentions dawned on him. Rachel, caught off guard, attempted to deny my claims, accusing me of making things up to divide the family. I firmly emphasized that she and Alex were the ones who had divided the family in the first place, with their affair and betrayal. The argument escalated, with Alex's relatives joining in and expressing their disappointment that they hadn't received anything from Martha. They pointed out that, as her blood relatives, they deserved to have a piece of her inheritance. Everyone started to insist that I sell the property and split the cash 8 ways. I was shocked to see their callousness and entitlement. I firmly stated that I was the only one who had taken care of Martha until her last days, while none of them had bothered to visit. Therefore, they had no right to barge into my house and demand anything that belonged to Martha. The room echoed with raised voices as they continued to question the fairness of the will. Alex protested, claiming it was his childhood home, and he deserved to live there with Rachel and their child. He threatened to sue me and contest the will if I didn't give him the house. I laughed at his face upon hearing his words. Alex seemed surprised by my reaction. I reminded him that he had been a neglectful son and never bothered checking up on his mother. It was only when I begged him to visit her that he finally came, and even then, it was just once. I told him that he was welcome to try and sue me for wasting his money, but the will was ironclad, and there was nothing he could do. Emily was Martha's grandchild, and I was her daughter-in-law who loved her and took care of her. She had rightfully left us everything. Rachel began begging, urging me to stop being so selfish and consider their son, Darren. She emphasized that Darren deserved to have a good life, like Emily. I agreed but questioned whether she ever cared about Emily and how Alex had treated her all these years. Emily was his child too, yet he chose not to be a part of her life. I made it clear that she could beg all she wanted, but I was never going to give her or her child anything. I asked everyone politely but firmly to leave my house and let me be. I reminded them they were welcome to go through the contents of the will with Martha's lawyer again if they pleased, but I was done with this discussion. As they left, I felt satisfied that I had stood my ground and respected Martha's wishes. Since then, Alex has continued to call and message me, expressing his disdain and insisting that I hand over everything that, according to him, rightfully belongs to his family. Despite his relentless demands, I remain resolute in honoring Martha's final wishes. Despite Alex's incessant calls and messages, I stood firm in my decision. His angry tirades about how I should have handed over everything to him and his family fell on deaf ears. My resolve was unshakable. Martha's wishes were clear, and I intended to honor them to the fullest. Things took a more serious turn when Rachel decided to escalate the situation. One day, out of the blue, she called me. I didn't recognize the number, so I answered, not expecting the hostility that greeted me. "You're a greedy gold digger." Rachel's voice was filled with venom. "You stole everything that should have been ours. I hope you rot with your ill-gotten gains." I was taken aback by her aggression, but I tried to remain calm. "Rachel, this was Martha's decision, not mine. I didn't orchestrate anything. She chose to leave her estate to Emily and me." "You're lying," she spat. "You manipulated her when she was weak and bedridden. You don't deserve anything. I'm glad Alex left you after the miscarriage. You didn't deserve to be his wife." Her words were cruel and cut deep, but I didn't let them show. Rachel, Martha made her decision with a clear mind, long before her health deteriorated. She wanted to ensure Emily's future. Rachel's tone grew even more menacing. "If you don't give Alex a part of the inheritance, I'll make sure everyone knows what a deceitful person you are. I'll even tell Emily the truth about you." That crossed the line for me. "If you ever come near my daughter or try to contact her, I will have you arrested. I have evidence of your harassment, and I won't hesitate to get a restraining order." Rachel seemed momentarily stunned, but she quickly recovered. "We'll see about that," she muttered before hanging up. I immediately called Alex to inform him about Rachel's threats. Surprisingly, he seemed genuinely shocked and even apologized on her behalf, but I cut him off. Alex, I don't owe you anything. Martha left her estate to me and Emily, and you can't do anything about it. If you or Rachel contact me or Emily again, I'll take legal action. Since that call, things have been surprisingly quiet. I focused on settling into Martha's home, determined to create a peaceful environment for Emily and me. However, the tension between Alex and Rachel loomed over us like a dark cloud. A few weeks later, I received an official letter from Alex's lawyer, threatening to contest the will. They claimed that Martha was not in her right mind when she made the changes, and that I had unduly influenced her decisions. It was a desperate attempt, and I knew they had no grounds to stand on. Nevertheless, I decided to consult with Martha's lawyer to ensure that everything was in order. During our meeting, Martha's lawyer reassured me that the will was solid. Martha was of sound mind when she made these changes, he said. She was clear about her intentions, and there is ample documentation to support that. With this reassurance, I felt more confident. Alex's threats were empty, and there was no way he could overturn the will. I knew I had to brace myself for the legal battle ahead, but I was ready. In the meantime, Emily and I settled into our new home. The house was filled with memories of Martha, and while it was bittersweet, I found comfort in knowing that her legacy lived on through us. I redecorated Emily's room, turning it into a princess-themed haven she adored. We spent weekends in the garden, planting flowers, and enjoying the sunshine. Despite the ongoing legal threats, life started to regain some semblance of normalcy. Emily thrived in her new environment, and I focused on my work and her well-being. Martha's inheritance provided us with financial stability, allowing me to give Emily the life she deserved. However, the peace was short-lived. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, I heard a loud knock on the door. Opening it, I found Alex and Rachel standing there with grim expressions. They had brought along a few relatives, their faces twisted with anger and determination. "Can we come in?" Alex asked, his voice tense. Reluctantly, I stepped aside and let them enter. The atmosphere was charged with hostility as they filed into the living room. Alex wasted no time, his voice dripping with resentment. "We're here to discuss the will," he said. "We believe there was foul play, and we want what's rightfully ours." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. As I've said before, Martha made her decision with a clear mind. The will is legal and binding. Rachel stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "You're a liar. We know you manipulated her. We have every right to contest this will." One of the relatives chimed in, his voice stern. Martha was family. Blood relatives should have a share of her estate. It's only fair. The argument escalated quickly, voices rising in anger and accusations flying. Alex's relatives demanded that I sell the property and split the proceeds. They insisted that as blood relatives, they were entitled to a portion of the inheritance. I stood my ground, my voice firm and unwavering. I took care of Martha until her last days. None of you bothered to visit or check on her. You have no right to demand anything. Alex's face twisted with rage. This was my childhood home. I deserve to live here with my family. If you don't give us what we want, we'll take legal action. I couldn't help but laugh at his audacity. Go ahead and try. The will is ironclad, and you have no grounds to stand on. Emily is Martha's granddaughter, and I was her daughter-in-law who loved and cared for her. She left everything to us for a reason. Rachel began to beg, tears streaming down her face. "Please, think about Darren. He deserves a good life, just like Emily." I looked at her with a mixture of pity and resolve. I understand that, but where was that concern when Alex chose not to be a part of Emily's life? He had his chance to be a father to her, and he chose not to. "I'm not giving you or Darren anything." I asked them to leave my house, reminding them that they could take the matter to court if they wished. I knew they had no legal standing, and their threats were empty. As they left, I felt a sense of triumph and relief. I had stood my ground and protected Martha's legacy. Despite the tension, I knew that I had made the right choice. Martha's wishes were clear, and I would honor them no matter what. The legal threats continued to loom, but I was prepared to face whatever came my way. My priority was Emily and ensuring that she had a secure and happy future. After the heated confrontation, I found myself more determined than ever to honor Martha's wishes. The legal threats from Alex and Rachel persisted, but I was prepared. I spent hours with Martha's lawyer, gathering all necessary documents and evidence to prove that her will was legitimate and that her decision was made with a clear mind. Meanwhile, Emily continued to thrive in our new home. Her laughter filled the house, reminding me of the joy and peace Martha had wanted for us. We continued our weekend gardening sessions, and Emily's room became her sanctuary, filled with everything she loved. One afternoon, as Emily and I were baking cookies, there was another knock on the door. I opened it to find Alex, standing there alone. His expression was more subdued than before, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I once loved. "Can we talk?" he asked. I hesitated but then nodded, stepping aside to let him in. We sat in the living room, the tension between us palpable. "Lily, I came to apologize," Alex began, his voice heavy with regret. "I know I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm sorry for how I've treated you and Emily." His words surprised me, but I remained cautious. "What brought this on?" Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Rachel and I have been fighting a lot. She's been relentless about contesting the will, but after our last argument, I realized how much damage I've caused. I hurt you, and I abandoned our daughter. I'm sorry." I looked at him, trying to gauge his sincerity. "It's a little late for apologies, Alex. The damage is done." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "But I want to make things right. I want to be a part of Emily's life if you'll let me." His plea tugged at my heartstrings, but I couldn't forget the pain he had caused. "You can't just walk back into her life and expect everything to be okay. She's been through a lot because of you." "I understand," Alex said, "but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make amends. I'm not asking for forgiveness overnight. I just want a chance to be her father." I sighed, torn between wanting to protect Emily and the possibility of giving her the father she deserved. "We'll see. But know this, Alex. If you hurt her again, there will be no second chances." Alex nodded, tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Lily. I promise I'll do my best." With that, he left, leaving me with a whirlwind of emotions. Part of me wanted to believe he had changed, but I knew I had to be cautious. Emily's well-being was my top priority, and I wouldn't let anything jeopardize that. Over the next few weeks, Alex made an effort to reach out to Emily. He called regularly, and while she was initially hesitant, she slowly began to open up to him. They talked about school and her hobbies and even planned a few outings together. I supervised their interactions closely, ensuring that Alex's intentions remained genuine. During this time, the legal threats from Rachel ceased. It seemed Alex's change of heart had influenced her as well. She no longer contacted me, and the constant barrage of accusations and demands finally stopped. It was a relief to have some peace. One evening, after Emily had gone to bed, there was a soft knock on my door. I opened it to find Rachel standing there, her expression contrite. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated, then nodded, letting her into the living room. We sat in awkward silence for a moment before she spoke. "I'm sorry for everything," Rachel began, her eyes brimming with tears. "I was so caught up in the fight for the inheritance that I lost sight of what matters. Alex and I have had a lot of problems, and I took my frustration out on you. I'm truly sorry." Her apology caught me off guard, but I could see the sincerity in her eyes. "It's been a difficult time for all of us," I said. "But Emily and I have to move forward. I hope you understand that." "I do," Rachel said, nodding. "Alex told me about his conversation with you, and I realized how wrong I've been. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I'm stepping back. I won't contest the will. Martha made her choice, and I need to respect that." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. "Thank you, Rachel. That means a lot." She gave a small, sad smile. "I just hope that someday we can all find some peace and maybe even be civil to each other." As she left, I felt a sense of closure. The battle over Martha's inheritance had been exhausting, but it seemed that, finally, the worst was over. In the following months, Alex continued to rebuild his relationship with Emily. He attended her school events, took her on weekend outings, and slowly but surely, they began to form a bond. It wasn't easy, and there were setbacks, but I could see that Alex was genuinely trying to make amends. For me, it was a time of reflection and healing. I focused on creating a stable, loving environment for Emily. We continued our routines, and the house slowly transformed into a home filled with new memories. Martha's presence was still felt in every corner, but now it was a comforting reminder of her love and support. One day, as Emily and I were planting flowers in the garden, she looked up at me with a bright smile. "Mom, do you think Grandma Martha is happy now?" I hugged her tightly, tears in my eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. I think she's very happy." At that moment, I felt a deep sense of peace. Martha's legacy of love and support would continue through Emily and me, and I knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. As the months passed, life gradually returned to a semblance of normalcy. Alex continued to be a presence in Emily's life, and his efforts to rebuild their relationship were beginning to pay off. Emily, who had been wary at first, started to look forward to their time together. She would come home after their outings, excitedly telling me about their adventures and the fun they had. It warmed my heart to see her so happy. Alex and I also found a way to communicate more amicably. We set clear boundaries and expectations, focusing on co-parenting effectively. Our conversations, once filled with anger and resentment, became more about Emily's well-being and future. It was a slow process, but we were making progress. Rachel, true to her word, stepped back from the legal battle. She and Alex seemed to have resolved some of their issues, and although our interactions were minimal, they were civil. The peace that had settled over our lives was a welcome change from the turmoil of the past year. Emily made new friends at school and excelled in her studies. She also discovered a love for painting, a passion that seemed to blossom overnight. I encouraged her creativity, setting up a small art studio in the corner of our living room. Watching her paint, I often thought of Martha and how proud she would be of her granddaughter. One evening, as Emily and I were having dinner, she looked at me thoughtfully. "Mom, do you think we could invite Dad and Rachel over for dinner sometime?" Her question took me by surprise. "Why do you ask, sweeties?" "Well, I think it would be nice to have everyone together," she said with a hopeful smile. "I know things were bad before, but maybe we can all be friends now." I was touched by her innocence and her desire for unity. "That's a lovely idea, Emily. I'll talk to your dad and see if we can arrange something." The following weekend, Alex and Rachel came over for dinner. It was a bit awkward at first, but Emily's enthusiasm helped break the ice. We shared a meal, and as the evening progressed, the conversation flowed more easily. There were still undercurrents of tension, but the effort to create a harmonious environment for Emily was evident on all sides. After dinner, Alex pulled me aside. "Thank you for this, Lily. It means a lot to Emily and me." I nodded, appreciating his gratitude. "It's for Emily. She deserves to have her family together, even if it's just for a night." As the months turned into a year, the bonds that had been broken began to mend, albeit slowly. Alex's presence in Emily's life became a source of stability for her. We established a routine where she spent every other weekend with him and Rachel. The arrangement worked well, and it allowed Emily to experience the love and support of both her parents. One day, as Emily and I were sorting through some old boxes in the attic, we came across a photo album filled with pictures of Martha. We spent the afternoon looking through the photos, laughing and sharing memories. It was a beautiful reminder of the love that had carried us through the hardest times. "Mom, can we make a scrapbook for Grandma Martha's?" Emily asked, her eyes shining with excitement. "Of course, we can," I replied, hugging her close. "That's a wonderful idea." We spent the next few weekends working on the scrapbook, gathering photos, letters, and mementos that told the story of Martha's life and the impact she had on ours. It was a labor of love, and by the time we finished, we had created a beautiful tribute to a remarkable woman. In the years that followed, our lives continued to evolve. I focused on my career, finding fulfillment and success in my work. Emily grew into a bright, confident young woman, her artistic talents blossoming further. She often spoke of Martha, sharing stories with her friends and teachers, ensuring that her grandmother's legacy lived on. Alex and I maintained our amicable co-parenting relationship. While we would never regain the closeness we once had, we found a way to respect each other and prioritize Emily's needs. Rachel and I, while not friends, had reached a mutual understanding and respect. The animosity that once defined our interactions had faded, replaced by a shared commitment to Emily's happiness. One sunny afternoon, as Emily and I sat in our garden, she turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Mom, do you think Grandma Martha is proud of us?" I smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. "Yes, Emily. I think she's very proud of us. We've come a long way, and we've honored her memory in the best way we could." As I looked at my daughter, I realized that the journey we had been on, filled with challenges and heartache, had also been one of growth and healing. In the end, we had created a new kind of family, one built on resilience, understanding, and love. And in that, I found the true meaning of Martha's final wish: to cherish the bonds that connect us and to carry forward the legacy of love that she had left behind.